Update about the Precure comic. So, if case you missed the previous one, I'll just explain again. So, hi, my name is Ayumi. I am a big time Magical Girl fan, #1 Precure fan in the world. I am bundled up because it is freezing right now, and I'm still warming up before I get my day started. Don't worry about it. So, yes, I woke up to getting to finally see the full news about the Precure comic that came out. So for those who don't know, Nakayoshi Magazine, this is the magazine that publishes monthly and has done all kinds of magical girls. Obviously, most famously Sailor Moon, but tons and tons of other ones. Um, and they had, for the past 22 years, been doing a supplementary Precure comic that goes along with the TV show. So this is one of those cases where the TV show is the main thing. So rather than being an adaptation, what was going on is that this material would just kind of tell side stories or even a slightly different story. Certain characters, like their whole, debuts are completely different and stuff like that. But of course, all the comics were still approved by Toei Animation. They were all drawn by Futago Kamikita, aka the Kamikita twins. Here's a drawing from them of the original Futariwa Precure. And of course, at the bottom here, You and Idol Precure. So with chapter 12 coming out in the latest Nakayoshi magazine, we had to finally hear the answer of what was going to happen next with Star Detective Precure, which of course is premiering in February and would theoretically subsequently also get a comic because they would always be, again, 12 months of the year, there'd be 12 chapters. With any comic magazine, whether it's monthly or weekly, any news about the next issue would happen in the current issue at minimum, if not earlier. So when we got the news last issue that this would be the final chapter from the twins of Precure, there were only two options. Either the Precure comic was going to end completely, or there would be a replacement artist to take over the mantle. I was expecting, just like many, that this would mean the continuation with a new artist. Obviously, that would be a huge burden, but that didn't happen. So Nakayoshi Magazine's website now has a page listed for the next issue, which would be, now confusingly, the issue that just dropped is the February 2026 issue. So the next one is the March issue, but would premiere in the beginning of February. It's complicated, don't worry about it. Anyways, I Fell in Love with You, I think is the English title. That series is actually finally ending. The final chapter is next issue, which is pretty cool. That's a big series. Season 2 of the animated adaptation is coming out soon, and some other stuff is going on. But even if you scroll down to the listings below of what is going to be in the issue in general, Precure's not there anymore, which tells me that the comic is over. The other reason why I'm pretty sure that this comic is ending is actually right here in the thing I showed you earlier from Nakayoshi. The animated series will still continue for Precure, which of course we already knew. Which is like, yeah, that's a signal that, like, oh yeah, like the comic is over, but keep watching the show. If you are someone who thinks, oh, well, I don't read the Precure comic, I've never touched it in my life, this doesn't affect me as a Precure viewer. Yes, it does. Because the Precure comic was actually where we would get episode titles. So this does beg the question, why? Why is the Precure comic ending? Well, as I mentioned in my last video, the Kamikitas are getting older. They are, around retirement age. We don't know exactly how old they are, but we do know that they are in their 60s. So it would make sense for them to put down the pen. And then, the speculation would be like, why didn't Toei choose a successor? Well, it could just be a simple thing of like, well, the comic's not going to look the same anymore. I'm a big fan of the comics. I love what they have done. The Kamikitas are, always really creative and interesting. I love what they do when they get their own time to, shine. Famously, I love, love, love their Naomi Osaka Magical Girl comic as well. I also have their picture books. I'm a big fan of them. The comic is the only time that we have a canonical same-sex kiss in Precure, in the witchy Precure comic. So that's a huge deal. However, the target audience is going to be older girls, in that they are likely in the later grades of elementary school or maybe even middle school. But Precure is for girls aged 3 to 6. That's the target audience. So there's kind of a disconnect there. So the people who read the comic are typically a little bit older fans of Precure anyway. Um, so it kind of makes sense to, like focus on the main target audience. Obviously, even before Sailor Moon's time, there have been comics that coincide with the Magical Girl series, but Sailor Moon is a very successful version of that, coinciding with each other, them working in tandem to create both at the same time. Please do not underestimate the fact that the Toei version is not an adaptation. But anyways, but I think one thing to also consider is that another similar case to Precure was actually Ojamajo Doremi. So Ojamajo Doremi did have comics running in Nakoshi magazine the entire time that Ojamajo Doremi was airing on TV. However, 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 they didn't actually finish reprinting the comic in the tankobo form that you would see here. So what that means is that there is actually a whole bit of basically lost media, which is one of the things I'm trying to get one of these days, which is a whole bunch of chapters of the Ojamajo Doremi comic that you can only get if you buy physical copies of this magazine from over 20 years ago. With that in mind, it's pretty amazing what the Precure comic has managed to do. So once again, shout out to the Kamikita twins for giving us a Precure comic for 22 years. That's a very impressive run. And I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what bonus stuff comes out when the last and final versions of the UN Idol Precure comic do get released in March of next year. If you like hearing me talk about magical girls, my podcast Sparkleside Chats with Magical Girl Ayu is on all the podcast places. And also feel free to like, comment, and share, etc. Okay, bye bye.